Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope you guys are having another awesome day. It's Rick, and I dug up some pretty
Sometimes they say huge.
big information that actually looks like this came out back in March of this year. And somehow I had no idea about it.
And you hate to see it.
It's an executive order that was passed by President Biden. This is Executive Order 14067. And this is going to be huge for the CBDC and digital currency that I've been talking about a lot on this channel. So what I figure we would do today is we'll dive a little bit into this executive order, why it's important for the future of money and what exactly it means. But before we get into it, if you are interested in learning about money, the ins and outs of how money works, of course, investing and having your dollar stretch further for you, and being part of a community of people that are learning this money game together so we can all win, this is a channel for you. So make sure that you smash that subscribe button, turn on the bell notification. Other than that, let's go ahead and talk about this Executive Order 14067 and see how exactly it's going to change the future of our money. Now, before we dive into this executive order, let's talk about the basics of the switch that we're seeing right now to digital assets, because one of the questions I get is, aren't we digital already? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, we're digital in the sense of things that we use as consumers on a day in, day out basis, like our Venmos, our PayPals, our Zells, the way we basically interact with each other and exchange value. However, the digital that we're going to be talking about in this executive order is how transactions are settled, the types of software, and why, again, this is important, because what you don't see behind the scenes is even though a transaction settles from consumer to consumer within a couple of seconds to potentially up to an hour or so, this does not mean it's settled between banks. So sometimes it can take up to a week to a month for banks to actually settle these transactions. And as you can see, if it takes them this long to settle these transactions, and we as consumers are doing transactions rapid fire through our PayPal, Zells, all of that good stuff, there's a backlog of these transactions that need to happen between banks. And so what they're essentially trying to do is change the software so that these transactions settle instantly. So that's what I mean when I say we're going to be switching to this digital. It's not that we as consumers aren't, it's that the banking system cannot quite keep up with the amount of transactions that we as consumers are doing. So they're going to be updating that software. Okay, so we're not going to go over this entire thing because it is pretty long, but we're going to touch on the highlights of it, why they're doing it, and what we can expect moving forward. So if we get into just section 1 here, talks about policy. So it says advances in digital and distributed ledger technology for financial services has led to the dramatic growth in markets for digital assets with profound implications for the protection of consumers, investors, and businesses, including data, privacy, and security. So essentially what they're saying is with all these digital assets that are cropping up right now, it's important for them to figure out how they could keep our data safe and also our security safe as we exchange our information to buy these digital assets. Then it also says in November of 2021, non-state issued digital assets reached a combined market capitalization of $3 trillion, up from approximately $14 billion from November of 2016. Monetary authorities globally are also exploring and in some cases introducing central bank digital currencies. So when they say non-state issued digital assets, they're talking about things like cryptocurrency. So we can see the jump that in 5 short years has happened from 14 billion to 3 trillion. So really what they're starting to understand is that these digital assets really have a place on this planet, and they need to figure out a way to create security and privacy around the exchange of these digital currencies. And then of course, the big thing that we see here is it talks about the possible introduction of a central bank digital currency, which basically means that instead of having paper currency that we exchange for goods, they're going to be looking at something more digital. So it's not that it won't be called a US dollar or anything like that, but it might be called like a USDC, like a US dollar coin or currency or something like that. It's just a way of exchanging value. So think about it the exact same way as a dollar, just without the tangible side of it. So what this is saying is that they're exploring ways of potentially creating these CBDCs in order to make settling these transactions easier, but also, again, more secure, and also create some privacy as well for the consumer. All right, so next we're going to cover section 4, which is the policy and actions related to specifically the CBDC, and they get into a little bit of details with this. So specifically, I'm going to start here. So it says the administration sees merit in showcasing the United States' leadership and participation in international fora related to CBDCs and in multi-country conversations. So we've heard about this all across the world. There's countries that are already piloting the CBDC program. So they have their own CBDC per country. Now, if this is a program that ends up working, the United States doesn't want to fall behind because, as we all know, America is the global reserve currency. So that means they have to stay ahead of the monetary system and be at the forefront of it. That way they can stay the global reserve currency. And again, they can showcase that leadership like this section here is talking about. Now it also says that the CBDC may have the potential to support efficient and low-cost transactions, particularly for cross-border fund transfers and payments. So really big to note on this one. We've heard this whole administration for the United States talk about the importance of energy and consuming as little energy as possible as we transition to a more green type society. So that's what they're talking about with this efficiency of transactions, but also low cost transactions. What a lot of people don't know is to settle bank transactions, it can actually get pretty pricey. When you're talking about, pennies per transaction, there's millions of transactions that happen. Now you're starting to talk about the cost of doing business. So what they're essentially saying here is they want to be able to create a system. Again, we're talking about a software with the CBDC. They want to create a system that is efficient, so it doesn't use a lot of computer power, but also something that's low cost for them. So something that they aren't going to spend a tremendous amount of money to complete these cross-border payments itself. All right, so this is the last section I'm going to look at. This is section 9, definitions. This is important to understand because one of the questions I always get when we talk about a CBDC is what exactly is it, how does it work, and then what's the relation of that to cryptocurrency. So this does a good job of explaining it. So the term blockchain, now remember, blockchain was originally built by Bitcoin. It's the Bitcoin software. So the term blockchain refers to a distributed ledger technology where data is shared across the network that creates a digital ledger of verified transactions or information amongst network participants, and the data is typically linked using cryptography. So right here, what it's basically saying is distributed ledger technology, which is what banks are going to be using, is based off of the blockchain technology. And essentially what that is it is a network that creates a digital ledger. A ledger is basically how they keep record of transactions. These are verified transactions or information among network participants. And the data is typically linked using cryptography. So don't confuse the whole cryptography thing. Essentially, it's just a code, essentially like a computer code. But what this is essentially saying is the blockchain is how these CBDCs are going to be able to exchange the transaction history. These transactions need to be logged. They need to make sure that they're legit. They need to make sure that they're verified. They need to make sure that every single transaction is accounted for. So that's what that's talking about there. Now the term CBDC refers to a form of digital monetary. The term CBDC refers to a form of digital money or monetary value denominated in the national unit of account. So essentially what that's saying is they're just taking the native currency and they're converting it into a digital form. So again, We're not going to be using US dollars anymore. We're going to be using the digital equivalent to US dollars. Then talks a little bit about cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency refers to a digital asset, which may be a medium of exchange for which generation or ownership records are supported through a DLT, distributed ledger technology, that relies on cryptography, such as blockchain. So now they're starting to kind of show you parallels between a CBDC and cryptocurrencies. Now, does this mean that they're going to accept cryptocurrencies in the future? Maybe, maybe not. I believe they will, because they're based on the same type of technology, so it'll be very easy for them to incorporate them into this distributed ledger technology, but it's going to be up to them and if they feel safe enough with it, and of course if they can regulate it. So yeah, I wanted to share just that section there because again, that's something that we get a lot of questions on for the difference between the digital currency, CBDC, and actual Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and things like that. So hopefully it clears it up. So I figured I'd share that with you guys because I didn't realize that this was already in effect and that there was an executive order signed on it. And it's showing that we're making progress toward a what I would consider a lot cleaner type monetary system, where they're going to start being able to regulate a lot of different things like cryptocurrency, but also making transactions a lot easier and smoother as well to be able to keep up with the advancements that we're seeing in technology. So figured I would share that with you. That way you are prepared and ahead of the curve before it's too late. And of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we do talk about money news, understanding what's happening with your money and how to make your dollar stretch further for you. And of course, if you want to be a part of this community and stay at the forefront of what's going on so that you are ultimately winning at this game of money, this is definitely the community for you. So make sure that you smash that subscribe button, turn on the bell notification. Other than that, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.